As far back as I can remember, every family meal in our Nairobi flat felt like a performance I never asked for, a stage with too many spectators and too little applause. The familiar hush of nighttime traffic outside pressed against the grilled windows, honeyed by the glow of the streetlights. We gathered around my mother's battered mahogany table, worn smooth at the edges from years of elbows, plates, and the friction of family argument. Tonight the crispy aroma of ugali and sukuma wiki pretended nothing was brewing, but my mother's face betrayed her. She set plates with the deft hands of someone holding back, her signature pinch to the shoulder, the way her brows knitted before she forced a smile. She was always preparing for a blow. My sister Anita, 2 years older and always crisp, kicked off the ceremony. "So, Jamal, now that you're almost finished with school, what's the plan? Going to work with Uncle Charles at the firm?" Counsel hung in the air in that pointed way only family advice can. My mouth had gone dry, I swallowed, searching their faces for a trace of understanding. I saw only expectation, something hopeful and hungry. I drew in a breath and pressed my palms together. "Actually, I want to audition for the National Youth Orchestra. They're holding tryouts next month." The silence was immediate and heavy, knives paused in midair. My father looked up, his fork dangling as though he hadn't heard me right. Mama's lips tensed. "You and this music, Jamal, but when will you get serious? This is Nairobi, not some film." Anita's face split into a smirk. My brother David, always eager for a laugh and looking to please, chimed in. "Maybe he wants to be the next Beethoven, eh? You know those guys were all broke, Jamals." Uncle Charles, their golden child, chuckled. "Music is a hobby, not a life, son. There is no future here. Even Jesus was a carpenter." The conflict spread, warm and insistent, from my cheeks down to my chest, a reddening shame. I fiddled with my fork, listening to the scrape of metal against enamel, stacked against the neat ambitions of my family, the lawyers, the engineers, the teachers. My dream looked as fragile as rice paper. But the images prickled up. My battered violin, a cheap Suzuki copy I'd bartered for at a River Road market, the way the bow sang sweetly when I was alone in my room, the way music made the world open up, wide and forgiving. I sucked in another breath. I know it sounds strange, but this is what I want. I've been practicing 4 hours a night. It's what I love. Mama's voice hardened, carrying the final edge of worry. "And who will pay the bills with your love, Jamal?" The laugh rumbled around me, and I saw it then. Disbelief, dismissal, and disappointment dancing chaotically across their faces. The city beyond our windows felt impossibly far, the roasted corn seller singing, the rush of matatus. It was all ordinary, and here I was, absurd. A classical violinist in a Nairobi family dinner, outmaneuvered by logic and tradition. I ate in silence, mixing my shame with the sukuma as Anita leaned over to squeeze my wrist. "You always were dramatic," she whispered. It strung, but I said nothing. Night came on with its own thick silence. In my room, with the city's clamor a world away, I let the violin rest on my shoulder, drew the bow softly. The first notes trembled. I could not play without remembering their words clattering, their eyes rolling, but the sound, aching and hopeful, pulled me forward anyway. Months spiraled by. The auditions, when they came, were held in a campus auditorium I'd only ever seen plastered on the news, its blue doors tall and dignified. The waiting room swelled with students in crisp white shirts, clutching flutes and violins and clarinets as though they were shields against the world. I stood in my ill-fitting suit, patches sewn at the elbows by Mama, her final incongruent touch of support. I tried to steady my hands, they shook all the same. Inside, the panel sat behind a desk, faces stony. The room was too cold. I played meditation from thighs, hands sweat-slick and trembling, eyes closed to keep their gazes away. When I reached the final cadenza, it felt as if my heart poured out of the F-holes, vulnerable and raw for a world I hardly knew. I finished, let the last note fade, and looked up, desperate, dreading laughter or worse, indifference. Instead, a silence heavier than scorn. I waited. The chairperson, a woman with grey hair and sad, kind eyes, nodded once. "Thank you," she said simply. In the lobby, I met no one's eyes. As dusk crept in, I took the matatu back home, knees tight against the seat, violin case pressed to my chest. The city's pulse, the neon halos on the downtown rain puddles, all blurred past. When the letter finally came, inked, stiff and official, I almost tore it up unopened. The National Youth Orchestra would be honored to have me join, it read. Rehearsals started in June. "Congratulations." I ran to Mama in the kitchen. She put her hand on my shoulder, pride and worry battling across her face. "You know, this is not what I'd have chosen, but play then. Play well." I did not tell the others, the shame lingered, a kind of invisible bruise. Rehearsals were chaos and beauty, my world suddenly filled with noise and color and difficulty I'd never imagined. Our conductor, Mr. Camo, demanded precise articulation, posture corrected with a tap, always pushing for more. When I faltered, he'd cock an eyebrow. Again, Jamal, give us something from inside you. Music grew and grew. I discovered friends, Aisha, as fierce a cellist as she was gentle otherwise, Samuel, whose clarinet ran wild with jazz licks when no one was listening. We played in churches, school halls, embassy gardens. Nairobi stretched out for me, newly vibrant, a city not only of bustle and striving but of secret shared beauty. Still, each concert poster in our neighborhood shop drew whispers. At family gatherings, I answered polite questions, watched their glances dart away, waiting for this phase to pass. I sent money when I could, small stipends from performance grants and part-time teaching in downtown music shops. But it was never real to them. It was only make-believe, a son chasing notes while others built stable lives. One night around my 20th birthday, I dropped in on a family dinner, violin case slung over my back. The skeptical glances strung less by then, but the chill had set in, a formal politeness as if I were company. Uncle Charles asked, "And how is the little orchestra job, Jamal?" His tone said enough. "It's going well. We are playing at the Goethe Institute Friday, Batch and a new Kenyan composer." Anita sipped her tea. "We'll see when you get a real job," she said, half smiling, half scornful. I left early, the city air biting at my chest, my feet beating a stubborn rhythm to the matatu stop. Years passed, I worked, I scraped by. For every workshop, competition or teaching gig, I had to justify myself tenfold. There were months when gigs dried up, when the landlord called, his impatience growing as I begged for one more week, when I lived on sukuma and rice, patching my shoes with glue. Sometimes in late-night practice rooms, I remembered that dinner, the laughter, the heat, the way my father looked away. Shame is a quiet poison. It seeps into your fingers until even the thing you love trembles. There were moments, many, when I thought they were right, nights where the bow felt too heavy, notes too far. I wandered Uhuru Park, watching others, engineers clutching briefcases, teachers headed to class, wondering if it was time to quit. But music did not let me rest. I woke from dreams of sound, of harmonies rising over the city. Bit by bit my days spun forward. I snagged an audition for the Nairobi Philharmonic. The panel this time was largely foreign. A German conductor with wild hands, a Kenyan musicologist who looked at me over her bright blue glasses. I played Sibelius for courage, and a new Kenyan piece, one that sang of matatus and river currents and the rush of city life. The cellist behind me grinned as I left the stage. 3 weeks later, an email: I had made it, my first contract, my first regular income. I clutched the phone as those words rang. "Welcome to the Philharmonic, Jamal's." My world tipped, life quadrupled in speed. There were rehearsals, tour to Mombasa, a performance in Dar es Salaam where the audience stood, weeping and clapping as the music died away. I sent money home more now. Mama's house gained a new coat of paint, her hospital bills paid. Still, at family dinner, my work was referred to as his performing thing. One December, as Nairobi fumed under the Christmas sun, something shifted. The Philharmonic was chosen to play a New Year's gala at the National Theatre. It would be televised, tickets sold citywide. I was the featured soloist, a piece steeped in both classical tradition and Kenyan roots, written just for me. I sent invitations as usual, expecting nothing, but at home, Mama waved the glossy card at dinner. "He's on the television, the National Theatre." Even my father's lips twitched. Anita shrugged, David rolled his eyes. Uncle Charles said nothing. I shrugged, not letting myself hope. The day arrived, traffic jamming the city. The theatre's portico glittered with fairy lights, posters adorned with my face and the pale outline of a violin. Backstage, I heard the audience settle, a quiet thunder. I checked the wings, peeking out with a wild hope that felt childish. There in the third row, Mama in her best kitenge dress. Anita, arms folded but present, David beside her, restless as ever, and Uncle Charles, stiff in his too-tight blazer, looking around as if expecting to catch someone in a lie. A surge of nerves, old shame twining with new ambition, swept over me. The orchestra tuned, the conductor nodded. "Jamal, it's your moment, ready." I stepped onto the stage. Under the blazing lights, my eyes strung. The sound of the city receded. All I could hear was the hush, the audience's shared breath. My hands found the violin, bow drawn. The music began low, rippling like the Nairobi River. I leaned in, letting the music unfold, the city's chaos alchemized into rhythm and melody, Matatu's horns, lovers' laughter, the far-off call to prayer, all rendered in notes. Time dilated and shrank to a wire's edge. Each phrase was a prayer, a plea, a declaration. I played for my city. I played for my mother's rough hands, my father's worried silence, my siblings' laughter, the ridicule and the loneliness, and the small, hard hope. Applause thundered, standing, raucous, the audience on their feet, faces shining. The conductor clapped me on the back. My section mates grinned, flushed. After curtain, I fought through bouquets to find my family in the lobby. Mama pressed me into her embrace, tears on her cheeks. My father shook my hand, words lost but grip strong. Anita stared, mouth parted. I didn't think you were amazing, Jay, she said quietly. David let out a whistle. Now I have to tell people you're the famous one. Uncle Charles came last, stiff as always. He regarded me, a look I'd never seen before, neither mockery nor pride, but a kind of wondering respect. I didn't know you could do all that, he said, voice low. We took a family photo beneath the theater's neon lights, Mama's hand tight on my shoulder. Word spread, at the corner shop people recognized me. Old neighbors stopped me in the street. The school I'd once attended invited me to talk. I saw the ripple of it, all the skepticism, the laughter turned to reluctant pride. I played internationally. Kampala, Addis Ababa, Cairo, eventually London's Royal Festival Hall. The music, the city, all opened for me and I for them. Still, Nairobi called me home. After years, on another blistering evening, I walked down the path to my family's flat, violin case heavy at my side. Chickens clucked from the neighbor's yard, the street alive with children's shrieks, all familiar. Inside, the table tonight was heaped with biryani and chapati, the best meals saved for celebration. My mother greeted me at the door, not with questions but with embrace. No one asked about law or business or the next plan. They sat proud, their eyes bright as I told stories, not only of stages but of the struggle, the hunger, the music that had filled hollow places in my soul. They listened. And when dinner was over, I took out my violin that had carried me through all the years of shame and hunger and rejection. There was no audience save my family. My hands did not shake. My voice settled clear. I played soft and strong, the melody winding through the close-walled flat, the city's heartbeat matched in every note. Mama closed her eyes, humming, Anita wiped her cheek, even Uncle Charles tapped his foot. In this room at last there was no ridicule, only love, quiet and true. In that moment I knew I had come home.